Welcome, everybody, to the debut episode of the Onward podcast, and we're delighted to make our first session about housing and planning, because these are issues which Onward cares about deeply. We're obviously, as a think tank, helping the Conservative Party with its policy review, and we founded Conservative YIMBY, the pro-housing group on the centre-right. And we couldn't have a better guest for our first episode, because we have Alain Bertaud, the Distinguished Visiting Fellow at George Mason University, based out in New York, someone who has given a lifetime of work to the business of building homes and building communities, and including most notably work on this at the World Bank. And Alain, thank you very much indeed for joining us and finding time on your trip to the UK. Coming to Britain with fresh eyes, what is your sense of the planning situation in the UK today? Because it's clear that it's a hot topic. It needs to be resolved. Both main political parties want to fix it, but it's obviously not a straightforward question.
Yes, what strikes me is that the UK system is very different. The process, to giving permit to build housing, which affects the supply of housing, is very different from most countries, especially America. But the outcome is exactly the same. Although and I know a number of people in North America, including one of my colleagues in Vancouver, who say, if we had a British system, we will solve our housing problem right away. So that's what strikes me, that two different systems have exactly the same outcome. That's
very interesting. And so you think the zoning system, common to so much of the world, has its limits as well as our discretionary system.
Right, yes.
And one of the themes we were discussing just before we started filming is the importance of market economics to land use and to fixing these problems. And in many ways, I think your argument is actually what the state should try and do is allow land to find its natural value to the greatest extent possible.
That's right, yeah. I think that we have to take land value seriously. They send a message. Now, I agree that there are distortions in land value. We have to find the distortion to remove them if possible. But still, even a distorted land value is a better guide than nothing at all. And I think that land value, what are land value? Land value means that a lot of people would like to live in this area. And that's what reflects land value. And of course, they compete with other things. For instance, housing competes with office buildings. Sometimes they don't compete very much with industry, but anymore. They used to, by the way, but not anymore. But they compete. And then, of course, there is also the question, I don't think it affects you so much, but the US, to separate land use as, for instance, not allowing grocery store in the residential area. I don't think you have this issue. But in the US, it's a very
but letting land find its value is very important.
And the proximity of different use. I think now, let's say, the negative aspect of mixing use is very much diminished compared. We live again under a bit the time of the Industrial Revolution of Dickens, where you had many incompatible use. I don't think there are incompatible use.
No, the days of...
or they are very well identified.
Quite. Belching smokestack, the less of a thing.
You will not have a lead smelter with once land.
Hopefully not. And actually, on that point, one of the discussions that we've been having on the centre-right is around whether minimum sizes for homes is something which we should be mandating or not. And you were suggesting perhaps that's something we shouldn't overly obsess about.
The size of an apartment is location, and the size of the land which goes with the apartment or the house, by the way, it could be a single family house. The consumer can see that. Different consumer, even with the same income, will make completely different trade-offs, depending on their age, maybe their situation, or even, maybe somebody wants to live close to his mother-in-law because she will take care of the children, and then that will mean that they will want to live in a certain area.
Yeah.
So you cannot average the trade-off that households are making in order to have an optimum plan. So you have the land market gives you in a way, a signal about those trade-offs, and you have to respect it.
Yes, and trust people effectively to make choices.
So I could add that if from time to time you may not be satisfied with the outcome of the market, you might want to intervene for maybe some part of the population. But unless you understand land market, you will not be able to help the people you want to help.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, what people with extreme sincerity, I think, are harming the people they want to help because they do not understand.
Yeah, well, the temptation to pick winners is always there.
That's exactly it.
And the other great good, I think, that we have identified is public transport and making sure that as you build, you also connect. I think you would argue that's something which is often neglected in design.
For me, housing and transport are part of the same. It's two sides of a coin. I have always, in my book, I always say a city is before primarily a labor market, and so that shocked a lot of people. Of course, what we want to do in cities is not necessarily only work, but all the things we like about cities, going to concert, jogging in a nice park, going to exhibition, meeting friends in a nice restaurant, all that is supported by the labor market.
Yes.
The day the labor market collapses, all these things we like about cities are disappearing. We had the example of Detroit in the U.S.
Yes.
Which was a fantastic city. It collapsed. So. Transport, the idea of a very large, people want to go to a very large city because of the opportunity it gives to them and their children, by the way, also.
Yep.
The possibility during your life to change job. The important thing is not so much to be employed. That's not enough. The Soviet Union had full employment. But they were extremely unproductive, because people will stay in the same job all their life.
Yes.
And you develop new skills, you learn new things, and the efficiency of, in our economy, of cities, is precisely the possibility to select the job you want, and admitting sometimes you make an error, but you could rectify it.
Yes.
You are not in a line.
Yes. And I think you mentioned that Mexico City is somewhere where public transport is really poor.
That's right. It's a wonderful city. I mean, I like it a lot. It has now 22 million people. But for the people who live in the south of the city, they cannot even consider working. If they found the ideal job in the north, they could not consider. They will have to commute 5 hours a day. And so for me, the extreme limit is commuting 1 hour one way, but that's the limit when you have your dream job. The average should be, the median, let's say, should be around 30 minutes. And that's the we should use the transport system, measure the commuting time of people living in different areas, commuting different things, and to accelerate, to make it faster.
Yes. And that's an argument for not expanding cities or their travel to work areas too far, I suppose. Because one of the things that Britain has done a lot, because it's hard to build in London, for example, is to push people a long way out into the surrounding countryside. It often strikes me, most people don't want to be travelling for an hour and a half, 2 hours a day to get to their destination.
It will have to be an exceptionally good job.
Exactly. But it's not there for these guys.
It should be temporary to public. Maybe you can do it for 1 year. And then, absolutely. So that's why, in a way, land price give you a signal how much land you should consume. And so if you blind this signal, you are going to waste land. And that means you are going to push people further away.
Yeah.
And that's why, understanding land prices and resolving that, it's a bit, we do that for food, if a type of food becomes more expensive, say lamb, then you switch to beef, it would be a waste to say, no, we should have a standard price for every type of food.
Yes.
It's not. We should, if it's cost, you should not, you should be very careful about the way you use it.
What's the most surprising land price pattern that you've ever seen?
It was in Tehran. Not everybody worked in Tehran, but I did. And Tehran is on a slope. So
surrounded by mountains.
Surrounded by mountains, but Tehran expands in the plain. So the very high income people are at the top.
Right.
And the poor people are at the bottom.
Right. And
the center is in the middle.
Right.
And so you have the advantage, the climate is very different.
Okay.
And then the water, there's plenty of water coming down the mountain. During winter you have snow. And so the water is rather, you have water going through the gutters, along the sidewalk. Yeah. Which is clean when you are there. It's full of garbage when you arrive at there because people tend to throw things out. So here you have, instead of having a normal price gradient where from the center the value of land is distributed, in negatively exponential curves, traditionally. You have in fact, the higher it is, so that means to the north, you have very high land prices, and they go down together with the topography. It's completely abnormal, but this is so. You asked me this question.
It's fascinating, and you've travelled obviously enormously widely as part of your work. You were saying that now Brazil is a large part of your
right
time.
Now, yes.
What's taking you there?
Well, Brazil they have to do first my book was translated into Portuguese just after it was translated into Chinese.
The market again.
And then it happens that in their constitution, it says that every 10 years, every city which is more than 20,000 people should have a master plan.
Right.
And this master plan is subsidized by the federal government. So every 10 years, the federal government gives millions of dollars to a city to prepare a master plan. Right. But the city do not have a budget themselves to prepare this master plan. So it's prepared by external consultants. Some of them, I'm sure, are very competent. But the mistake is to think that you can develop a plan during 2 years by people who come from outside, are very smart, and that now you have a blueprint. That then during 10 years you don't have to worry. You just enforce your blueprint. A city is not like that. A city is confronted to external shock all the time. We had the COVID recently, but you have interest rates which are changing. The tariff now, the collapse, let's say, of trade will change the way jobs are distributed. It will change a lot of things. A city is successful when it's quick to react to those things.
Yes. And in reacting, what data or tool do you think planners should use the most, or indeed should use more than they currently do? What is the most insightful thing or things to measure?
In a city, I distinguish two things. One which I would call spontaneous order, which comes from things that the planners or the government do not control at all. For instance, the migration rate to your city. Income distribution. Income distribution, we wish it would be very equalitarian, but we don't control it. So you have to monitor very carefully the income distribution of your city. And if you look at my book, I have a different way of looking at income distribution. I think the way we do it normally is not accurate enough.
Okay.
And because a city is made of citizens. The sewer system, the transport, the housing is there to help the citizen. In themselves, they have no value. If you build a very nice building in the middle of nowhere, nobody wants to live there, the value of this building is zero, even if it's very well designed.
Yes.
So we have to take into account that the value of a city is the quality of the people who are there. And so this spontaneous order, in fact, is what the change that people do. For instance, a much lower fertility rate of women is something which is affecting city. It's going to have and produce a lot of change. We have to monitor it very carefully.
Yeah.
It changed the way we distribute school, the way we distribute services, but it affects also our labor force.
Yes.
If our labor force, increase, for instance, in Asia where this started, Korea and Japan started with this low fertility. Strangely enough, if you analyze it, it reinforces very large cities, and it make the management of smaller cities very difficult. Because young people, when they realize that their city is losing population, are moving to a large city. For instance, Tokyo keep growing. The majority of cities in Japan, which have less than 3 million people, are shrinking. All of them.
Yeah.
So imagine so you see, it's a bit paradoxal. You would think that everybody will you will be happy to live in. So I found that in Thailand recently that the smaller municipality were complaining to me that all the young people were going to Bangkok. Although Bangkok is congested, it's expensive, but to keep a social life and to select the job you want.
Interesting.
You don't want to stay in a shrinking labor market.
Well, there's a real, obviously, concern in the UK about our birth rate now,
yes, right,
which is low and falling. And it's quite interesting, even in London, perhaps particularly in London, because of the very high cost of living and cost of housing, right. You're seeing schools now where there aren't enough pupils on the roll. Okay. You're seeing maternity units closing in hospitals. Yes. So this is a live thing. And
that's right, yes.
So actually, almost literally, the life of your city is something that planners ought to be monitoring.
All those social facilities. And that's, when you have a shrinking population, or shrinking, let's say, children population, talking about primary school, you are obliged, there is a certain size of school. You cannot have a school with 20 kids. So you are obliged to close them. People don't like it because it means that their school will be further away. For health, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
And so that's why, in a way, densities is important in a shrinking population, because then it will make those things more at a shorter distance at the water.
Yes, more attainable.
In the smaller city, in city Toyama, where I work in Japan, which is a city of 2 million, but we're shrinking. To give service to the old people, they're obliged to bring them from the suburbs to the center. Their houses are demolished in the suburbs because, so you see, because of accessibility, they have to bring them in an area where, so density allow you to give better service at proximity.
That's a good challenge.
So we are not
for building. Not there yet, but we are. I think we are, and I think our best chance of avoiding it is to act.
I see in France, for instance, I see people protesting because they close an hospital, but you cannot manage an hospital and so we have to understand that this is density which created.
Yes.
It's not the bad will. The governments try to save money, of course, but saying. Yeah. There is a limit to, you cannot maintain an hospital if there are a few patients.
Quite. One of the things, of course, which we do have in the UK is the concept of the green belt around our cities. Yes. And that was devised, I think, with good intentions to try and prevent too much urban sprawl.
Yes.
But it is also distorting the market.
Right.
And there's a really legitimate argument, I think, around the fact that parts of the green belt are important and beautiful and valued by communities. Other parts are more or less arbitrary designations, more about stopping growth than about protecting value.
Or recreation.
Indeed. Yeah. What would you I mean, are there parallels in other countries to the Greenbelt policy that Britain has, and how have they managed that Greenbelt challenge? Because at the moment it risks limiting cities' ability to develop in an organic way.
Yes. Well, there's one country which has Greenbelt, one city, Seoul, in South Korea. And the Koreans are very strict in enforcing, by the way.
Right.
A lot of cities have Greenbelt, but you will never know it.
Right.
Because it's so difficult to enforce because it's so unnatural.
Right.
Now, the question is, what is the goal of a Greenbelt? If it is to prevent extension, it's a mistake. It means, in fact, that you are giving away a lot of valuable land, and people even will commute beyond.
That goes to my earlier point about the distances that people have to travel.
It increases the distance because, again, there's this labor market which exists. So, if you're talking about recreation, I think in a certain way, at the beginning, if you look at the history of Greenbelt, it was always, you should be in contact with nature. Your Greenbelt and most Greenbelt are not contact with nature, let's face it. If you want contact with nature, you will have linear park along rivers, along little footpaths, and which will not prevent the extension of city. It will be something that corridors. And of course, there could be a little hill that is worth preserving. So put it, do not allow the market to work there. You see, again, one of the job of the planner, I think, is to separate what is public good from private good very early. Then the market works very well, and then the public good are preserved. For instance, next to a river or a pond, even a little lake, you should have a belt so that everybody has access to that. Although the market will tell you, well, if you have a villa next to the lake, it will have a higher value. Well, that should take it away, and that's a top-down decision. It's a top-down decision.
And I think that's very much my view. I have to say that we should do more to protect areas of genuine beauty, but more realistic about the rest. Of course, in saying that, we bump into the small issue for politicians of winning elections, and I suppose there's a question here of how you balance technocratic planning with democratic input, and what you think the right or fairest way to do that is.
Yes. Well, you talk about communities which are next to the Greenbelt or in the Greenbelt. It's certain that if you remove the Greenbelt, those communities will not be happy because they are within a relatively short commuting time, and they enjoy at the same time the countryside. I will say that they are egoistic. We have to recognize that in a city you cannot just privilege a small group of people and guarantee that what they have will last forever. I had this example in Vancouver too when I was working there. In Vancouver, there is a question of view. You have beautiful mountains and you have the sea. And some people were saying, well, if you build a higher building here, I will lose my view. And one of my colleagues in Vancouver said, no, view never disappears, it's redistributed. And I think that in the case of the Greenbelt,
there is something in that.
And within the Greenbelt, maybe there are certain things you want to preserve, certainly, but say you cannot confiscate the entire area for the privilege of a few, even those people are not privileged in the... they are
but I understand completely your point. Absolutely. And of course there is an argument around fairness for younger generations, and also making sure that people, even if they're not affected, that their children and their grandchildren get access to good quality housing.
That's right. Yes. This, I think, we should examine. Document that more often. Quite a number of cities, I am told by people who live there, it's terrible. My children or my grandchildren, they graduated, they have a good job, and they are going to leave. to an area where they don't want to go in a smaller town, but that's the only part where they can afford a house.
Yes, I mean, that's very much what we hear a lot in Britain today.
And it's not only that they would like to live, say, in close to London or Edinburgh or Vancouver. It's also that more likely they will be more productive in this.
Yes.
I think one of my colleagues in the US has documented already this thing in the US where people who are very highly qualified move to smaller city where they have job where they are highly, overqualified. So this is a dead loss for the country because they cannot afford housing.
Yeah.
And, there is I don't know in UK, but in the US, the wealth accumulated by people in my generation is enormous because we didn't have this affordability problem. And
it is exactly the same.
There's a huge transfer from of capital from the young to the old, which is not equitable, and
which then of course compounds and crystallizes. So that if your parents were fortunate to accumulate that wealth, you will in due course inherit it. But of course it's not fair.
If you freeze the existing land,
Yes.
In this area we always had this, single family house or something like that, then we have to keep it that way because people enjoy living there.
Yes.
You are confiscating it for the new generation.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a very powerful note on which to end. Alain, thank you so much for your time. And I thoroughly commend Alain's book, Order Without Design, How Markets Shape Cities. It's something which I think goes to the heart of so many issues in our society. All roads in Britain today seem to lead back to housing and to getting it right. So it's been a wonderful episode. Thank you very much. And we'll be back with more episodes in the future. For now, onwards and upwards.